At the start of the 20th century, the world was a very different place than it is today. Women couldn't vote, many couldn't own property, and they never received equal pay for equal work. They were denied education, excluded from science, barred from leadership, and expected to obey the quiet rules of domesticity. The idea that a woman could be a war hero, a pilot, a politician, a scientist, or even simply speak out, was not just unlikely. It was unthinkable. But even in those early years, something was shifting. A pulse beneath the surface. A restlessness that began in whispers and started to grow. This is the story of the women who redefined gender in a patriarchal society. If the world wouldn't change for them, they would have to change the world. Welcome to Animata Historia, breathing life into historic photographs from around the world to remind us of how we used to live, where we came from, and what made us who we are today. In this three-part series, we are reanimating photographs of fearless women who defied the odds and redefined what it means to be a woman in a man's world. Part 3. Political Powerhouses. Emmeline Pankhurst did not whisper for change. She demanded it. With white sashes, broken windows, hunger strikes, and fire, she built a movement that refused to be polite. She led the suffragettes into prisons and parliament alike, not to ask for the vote, but to claim it. They called her a nuisance, a rebel, a criminal, but she was a mirror held up to a democracy that dared call itself just while silencing half its people. Every time her voice was silenced, another woman stood up in her place. She didn't just fight for the right to vote, she fought for the right to be heard. Madam C.J. Walker, born Sarah Breedlove, overcame poverty, racism, and sexism to become America's first self-made female millionaire. She built an empire from beauty, but her truest product was empowerment. She became a philanthropist and activist, and showed the world that it is your actions that define who you are and what you can become. Rebecca Felton served only one day in the U.S. Senate, but that single day cracked the granite dome of American politics. At 87 years old, she became the first woman senator, proving it's never too late to step into the light and never too early to demand your seat. Sandra Day O'Connor took her seat on the Supreme Court with measured words and monumental weight. The first woman on America's highest bench, she wielded reason like a sword, quietly steering the law toward equity, dignity, and common ground. Jeannette Rankin voted against both world wars, not out of cowardice, but conscience. As the first woman elected to the U.S. Congress, she showed that dissent could be the highest form of patriotism, and that the patriarchy she had grown up under was about to change. Susan B. Anthony was arrested for voting in 1872. She called it her duty. She never lived to see the 19th Amendment, but it bears her legacy. Her voice stirred a nation, and still does. Victoria Woodhull ran for U.S. President in 1872, when women couldn't yet vote. She was a stockbroker, a publisher, a firebrand. Too radical for her time, perfect for the one to come. She dared to imagine a democracy that included her, and then she demanded it. In a nation of over 1 billion, Indira Gandhi rose to become India's first and only female prime minister. Through sweeping reforms and bold leadership, she helped modernize India's economy and political system. Despite controversies, her presence at the helm of power redefined what leadership could look like for women in one of the world's largest democracies. She was tragically assassinated by her own bodyguards on October 31st, 1984. Benazir Bhutto shattered barriers as the first woman to lead a Muslim-majority country. Twice elected Prime Minister of Pakistan, she fought against dictatorship and stood tall in a male-dominated political arena. Her courage gave voice to countless women in the region, proving that leadership knows no gender. Like Gandhi before her, Bhutto was assassinated in December 2007 as the leader of the opposition. More than just a First Lady, Eleanor Roosevelt became a global voice for justice. A tireless advocate for women's rights and civil liberties, she helped draft the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Her legacy is not only in policy, but in empowering generations of women to step into public life and demand equality. After years of conflict, Liberia found a steady hand in Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, Africa's first elected female head of state. A Nobel Peace Prize winner, she championed anti-corruption, education, and women's rights. Her leadership proved that rebuilding a nation is possible when women are at the forefront. Thrust into politics after her husband's assassination, Corazon Aquino led a peaceful revolution that restored democracy to the Philippines. As the first female president of her country, she became a symbol of moral leadership and democratic hope for millions, especially women seeking to enter public life. Though her leadership faced numerous challenges, including several coup attempts, her non-violent restoration of democracy has left a lasting legacy in the Philippines. In Victorian England, Elizabeth Garrett Anderson broke through deeply entrenched barriers. She became the first woman in Britain to be elected as a mayor, a bold political milestone at a time when women couldn't even vote. But her trailblazing didn't stop there. In the mid-19th century, she also became the first woman in the country to qualify as a physician and surgeon. Determined to open the medical field to women, she co-founded the London School of Medicine for Women in 1874 and later served as its dean. A pioneer in both politics and medicine, Anderson redefined what women could achieve in society. Known as the Iron Lady of Israeli politics before the term became popular, Golda Meir rose from humble beginnings to become Israel's first female prime minister. A signatory of the Israeli Declaration of Independence, she paved the way for women in diplomacy and governance with unshakable resolve. In 1968, Shirley Chisholm made history as the first black woman elected to the United States Congress. But she didn't stop there. In 1972, she boldly launched a campaign for the presidency, becoming the first black candidate and the first woman to seek the nomination from a major political party. Her slogan, "Unbought and unbossed," was more than a motto. It was a declaration of her lifelong fight against systemic racism, sexism, and inequality. A fierce advocate for education, workers' rights, and gender equity, she refused to be silenced in a political world that tried to ignore her. Aung San Suu Kyi spent years under house arrest for her peaceful resistance against dictatorship in Myanmar. Awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for her nonviolent struggle, she became a global symbol for democracy and the rights of women to lead, even in the face of oppression. Frances Perkins shattered another kind of ceiling. She became the first woman in a U.S. presidential cabinet, serving as Secretary of Labor under FDR. Social Security, minimum wage, the 40-hour work week, they all bear her fingerprints. Each of these women fought. Some became symbols. Some were forgotten. These women didn't just open doors. They removed the hinges. They faced scorn, shame, exile, and violence. And still, they acted. Not always with the intent to change the world, but with the belief that they had the right to at least try. They were not connected by a single cause, but a common refusal to stay within the lines that had been drawn on their behalf. They were the first to climb, to vote, to speak, to run, to fly, to fight. But they will not be the last. Because of their courage, the world they once knew has changed. They paved the way for others where once there was no path at all, and showed the world that strength is not dependent on physicality. It is not a masculine trait reserved for men alone, but comes from within. And every woman alive today now recognizes that fact, thanks to the bravery of those pioneers that came before them. These are the fearless women who turned a world of limits into a landscape of possibility, who redefined gender and changed history forever.